The very mention of Roswell conjures up visions of gray aliens and crashed UFOs in the minds of most people across the globe. The recent popularization of the alleged events of 1947 have reached the entire world. More than just the debatable event, there is a message that comes attached to the crash and the idea of aliens from outer space with a mission. This message is one that opposes any and everything against a belief in a personal God as creator and provider for his creation. Roswell has become the mecca and global origin for all things UFO and alien. Did this fame happen by chance, or was Roswell part of an ancient plan spanning thousands of years in the making? In this series about the Roswell crash in 1947, we will discuss the historical events in brief and pay more attention to an unknown history behind the events that led up to the crash. We will also discuss recent discoveries in the Bible that describe the results of the aftermath of this crash. Other prophetic texts of Scripture describe in detail many of these unknown historical events as fulfilled prophecy leading up to the appearance of the Antichrist and the return of Jesus Christ in the last days. These amazing discoveries can give us a clear picture as to why there was a planned crash in Roswell. We can also discover just who these gray aliens are and what their agenda for this world is. Adding to this discussion will be my own personal insights and investigative results from living in Roswell for 4 years, and the personal interviews and first-hand witnesses, as well as meeting many of others involved in the investigation of this phenomena. There are problems of accuracy with gathering together the actual events of the Roswell story. The Roswell story of a crashed UFO has been one of much controversy and very difficult to sort out. Some of the problems creating this unclear picture are embellished stories, details with no conclusive evidence, deliberate false information proclaimed for personal gain by unscrupulous researchers and individuals seeking fame and fortune, and a large amount of disinformation distributed by our own government. To add to this, over 60 years have now gone by with most first-hand witnesses deceased. Debunkers and the news media make the whole subject something on the lunatic fringe and do more to discourage the truth than the government. Yet in spite of these difficulties, there does remain enough evidence that something out of the ordinary happened near Roswell in 1947. In this short series, I have reduced the details to the very basic elements that have survived most of the controversy and include details that are debatable for your awareness. My personal thanks goes to the aid of Dr. Stanton Friedman. He was the first and original researcher to reopen the Roswell events and offers the best first-hand witness to the whole situation. On Wednesday, July 2nd, 1947, Mr. and Mrs. Stanton Wilmot sighted an oval-shaped UFO flying near Roswell, New Mexico. Later that day, William Woody and his father spotted a bright object with a red tail northwest of Roswell. At the same time of the Woody sighting, Max Brazel, a rancher near Roswell, New Mexico, heard a loud explosion occurred on his ranch. On July 3rd, Brazel discovered the debris of an unusual wreckage on his ranch. Motivated by a reward for physical evidence verifying the existence of flying saucers, Brazel delivered some of the wreckage to Chaves County Sheriff George Wilcox. Wilcox immediately contacted the intelligence office at Roswell Army Airfield. Major Jesse Marcel, intelligence officer of 509th Bombardment Group, was the Army Air Corps and at the only atomic bomb wing in the United States based in Roswell, and was sent out with CIC Agent Cavett by the base commander, Colonel Blanchard, to check out the rancher's story on July 6th. The Roswell Daily Record quoted Public Relations Officer Lieutenant Walter Hout at the RAAF that the intelligence office was fortunate enough to gain possession of a disc through cooperation with one of the local ranchers and the sheriff's office of Chaves County. On July 7th, the wreckage was taken to Roswell Army Air Force Base. Following the announcement of the discovery, the official account takes a sudden turn, with the military going into full damage control to discount the story. July 8th, the next highest chain of command to the local military authority in Roswell was General Ramey of Fort Worth, Texas, the commanding officer of the 8th Army Air Corps. He put an abrupt stop to the flying saucer story. Major Marcel is sent to Fort Worth and brought out before the press to reveal broken pieces of a weather balloon as General Ramey explains away the original headline story of the flying saucer as that of being just a weather balloon. A retraction was also printed in the Roswell Daily Record on the 8th. In addition to the retraction, many eyewitnesses who corroborate Marcel's story were now silenced with intimidating threats. Swept under the rug, the incident went unnoticed or discussed until decades later. Retired from the military, Jesse Marcel, after 30 years of silence, decided to talk about what really happened in Roswell in 1947. 30 years after the Roswell incident, Jesse Marcel granted an interview with physicist UFO investigator Stanton Friedman, whereupon Major Marcel struck to the original story. Now the word is out and the public is aware that something indeed happened at Roswell in 1947. Other Roswell residents and military personnel also came forth, offering their accounts of the Roswell crashes. Eyewitnesses described the wrecked flying vehicles shaped similar to that of our modern-day SR-71, as well as seeing the remains of small gray bodies found at the site. The local mortician in Roswell, Glenn Dennis, tells of a request by the Army base for child-sized coffins. Pieced together the corroborating eyewitnesses' account add up to a true story truly out of the ordinary. Years later, retired General Thomas Du Bois, second in command to General Ramey, admits the weather balloon story was a cover and that the Roswell incident was given an above top secret classification. Despite the wide variety of theories that have evolved, the only one thing for certain is that there was a cover-up of an extraordinary event. For years, skeptics have claimed the crashed weather balloon story was actually all that happened and the whole UFO incident was a non-event myth. Trying to take the higher ground of logic and reasoning, they claimed that the whole incident was simply a mistaken identity. Suddenly, when the government admitted that the weather balloon story was a cover to hide a top-secret government program to spy on Russian space and atomic programs named Project Mogul, skeptics without explanation jump on this story. Once again, presenting no facts and boasting of their credentials, they take the higher ground of logic and reason to enlighten the rest of us what we should have already known. It is interesting that their credibility factor is never called into account for being hoodwinked by the government. They just continue on as the official experts of logic and reasoning as skeptics. Most of these skeptics are arrogant, self-willed people who do not believe in anything that is not in front of them at their five senses. They have no belief in a spiritual realm and have a very dim view of anybody and anything supernatural, including born-again Christians who talk to God. Anyone who has bothered to investigate this event and the people involved can usually get past their sense of logic and reasoning to find it takes more blind faith and nonsense to even consider some of their claims. There's reasons why I believe that something very extraordinary happened. First off, there's too many good people involved to be mistaken or making a lie. To discredit the majority of people who have testified to what they have seen as mistaken identity is both illogical and arrogant. Jesse Marcel Jr. is the son of Major Jesse Marcel, head of Roswell Army Air Base Security. As a young boy, he was shown parts of the wreckage by his father. I met him in 2006 at the Denver MUFON meeting. He strikes me as a military man sworn to be loyal to his country without any compromising on his part. He described what his father gave him to look at from the wreckage. He described the memory metallic sheets that always went back to its original shape. He described the bar with writing on it, which certainly was not balsa wood and mylar. He was a war veteran doctor and military officer, retired like his dad. He is an intelligent man capable of knowing what he experienced and saw and could easily discern that there was nothing ordinary about what he saw. I got the impression he knew more, but that he was going to remain like his dad, loyal to his government wishes, divulging only what and when he was told to. Now let's consider the account of Major Jesse Marcel, his father. He was the head of base security and intelligence for the only atomic bomber wing in the entire world. Our military's top leaders are not so careless as to put some novice in charge of the most important kept secrets of that time. In fact, quite the opposite. They would make sure that they had a loyal top man in charge. Farmers and locals were familiar with weather balloons, as there was a standard reward or recovery for them given by the military on a regular basis from the RAAF. Nearby are Armageddon and White Sands testing grounds. Marcel would certainly know the difference and could not make such an obvious mistake. Project Mogul consisted of common elements that would in no way act like the testimonies given by Marcel, his son, and others who claim to have seen the wreckage. To say otherwise is to call these people liars or stupid. I have come to know a few of them, and they are certainly not either. After such a horrible mistake, you would expect Major Marcel to be disciplined and reduced to a position of lesser responsibility. In fact, Marcel was promoted in rank and given a cushy job in the Pentagon. He was rewarded for being a faithful fall guy and a STRAC trooper. Project Mogul is just another smokescreen and basic backpedaling attempted by our government to hide what really happened. Here is some simple logic that explains away Mogul that skeptics seem to ignore. If something like Mogul was that secret, you know that even in 1947 we had tracking abilities to know where a secret project was every inch of its journey. We would have already developed a contingency plan to recover a crash and keep everything secret. The government would know exactly where the balloon was every inch of the way until it reached its Russian target. This is just the way we do things in this country. There would be no such thing as a lost balloon. No one was looking for anything until Max Brazel brought in pieces to the Air Force and through Lieutenant William Haught made the event public. Our government was clueless until that time that anything had happened. If a spy balloon would have gone down, there would have been created as a backup, much like the Kecksburg, Pennsylvania crash. Everything would have been removed before Max Brazel was even out of his bed. He would have never found anything, and it would have been already long gone. To suggest that the little bodies were mistaken crash test dummies is beyond belief if you actually investigate the facts. These dummies were not used by the military until 1953 and never in 1947, so you tell me who is lying and who lacks common sense or logic.